All right, so I'm finally getting around to making some of this pizza dough, and I wanted to share kind of the simple, straightforward setup for doing it. I set everything up ahead of time. Normally, I just dump everything in the bowl, but to make this a little simpler, I thought I would go through what I have and what I use. And so what you really need mainly is just a bowl and something to cover it with so that you can mix it up and let it sit. It takes a couple of days total to do the whole thing. This bowl is for the first day. It's super handy to have a flexible bowl scraper. Get these things at online or restaurant supply stores you have near you. They should be about 50 cents to $1 each, as much as $2. Do not spend $5 for these. It's good to have 3 or 4 of them around because they're useful for all kinds of stuff. And for me, I like using a scale. Unfortunately, because of the amounts in this recipe, my regular scale that I use for almost everything isn't sensitive enough for the salt and the yeast. So I have another crappier but more sensitive scale just specifically for that. I already weighed out the stuff, and so what we have is all-purpose flour, or bread flour. All-purpose flour will work. Bread flour is better, but all-purpose flour will work. This is 10 ounces. I have instant yeast, and I use kosher salt. Doesn't matter what kind of salt you use since we're doing it by weight. The salt is 2/10 ounce. The instant yeast, and that's important, instant yeast is superior in every way, so always use it if you can, is 0.15 ounces. So basically in Baker's percentages, this is 2% and 1.5%. It doesn't matter if they mix together because this is only going to be for a couple of minutes, and instant yeast is a bit more resistant to things like salt and sugar than rapid rise yeast is. Mix that together quickly. Briefly, 6.5 ounces of water, so at 65% hydration. And then with the dough scraper, one of the things that I really like about this is that you can not quite get as much on your hands early on in the mixing, as well as, of course, keeping the bottom of the bowl scraped down. Pretty soon we'll go in with our hands, but we'll at least get this started for you. All right. All I want to do now is just bring it together. We're not going to do any significant amount of kneading. I just want to not have that loose flour on the bottom of the bowl anymore. Because this dough is going to rest for so long, we don't have to worry nearly as much about even hydration or gluten development, because that will just happen overnight, and that'll take care of everything for us. With the yeast, if you're at all familiar with Baker's percentages, you probably recognize that 1.5% yeast is really not very much yeast, and part of the reason for a recipe like this using so little is because it's going to ferment for so long, we don't actually need that much yeast. This is still a little dry in the middle. I can kind of feel there's like a pocket of dry flour in the middle, so I'm sort of kneading it, rolling it in on itself just to kind of get things moved around. You can see it's ripping and behaving terribly. I don't care, it's gonna be totally fine. So for now, that is actually it. Now I'm probably going to come back and knead it once or twice later today. But aside from that, this now sits until tomorrow at room temperature. It's been like a half an hour or so. I thought I'd give this a quick fold. Most of the work, all of the work for the first day is going to happen in this bowl. And then after we separate it out into the other containers and won't need any more. You can see it's still pretty ragged. It's soft, but it's not very sticky. 65% hydration is not too bad. So I'm just gonna give it a bowl fold where I just pretty much go around the bowl and pull it up, and you can kind of see it's ripping, but it's behaving way better than it was already just from that half an hour of hydrating and resting. So it's pretty tight, but that's fine. But you can already see this is really pretty good dough. It's behaving very nicely already. And now, let it rest even longer. I will probably come back and fold it once or twice more over the next few hours as I feel like it, but if for some reason I forgot or I didn't have time, I left it till tomorrow, that would also be totally fine. All right, it's much later the same night. See, this is really starting to kind of rise nicely. It's got some good bubble structure. Pretty soft dough, not terribly tacky. I just wet my hand. You don't have to, it'll work if you don't, but what I'm going to do now is pull it up and then stretch it and lay it over. And if it's sticking to the bowl, you can release it a little bit, and if you'll notice, every time I do this, it gets more taut. And at the end, you can even pick up the whole thing. It's already building up gluten that fast. So you can give it a few more if you really want to, although that's really all it needs. And that will help to redistribute the yeast and give it more fresh food. And then it should basically fill this bowl tomorrow. I probably won't get to it for almost 20 hours, but even tomorrow morning, this will be puffed and probably fill most of the bowl. So I forgot about this, so it's been sitting here probably 24 plus hours, which is longer than I wanted, but it doesn't much matter, it'll still be fine. As we can see, it has really puffed up a lot from where it was before. And now I'm just basically going to split it into 3 equal-ish parts and set it up to store for till tomorrow. This probably filled up till it took over the entire thing, which is great, and then fell back down, which is also great because we're looking for the fermentation, the extra flavor. I'm going to take a little bit of oil. I have 3 little cheap Tupperwares here. I'm just going to put a tiny drop of oil in each one, and I am going to use one of the lids to weigh all of them out. The oil is going to get into the dough, but that's not really why we're adding it there. It's just to make it easier to turn it out when it comes time to actually make a pizza with it. And of course, little friend. So I'm going to separate this off from the bowl all the way around. It's going to deflate. That's fine because it is going to ferment again for a long time. I forgot to flour the bench, but this dough, like I said, it's about 65% hydration, so it should probably be okay. Now we're done with the bowl. You see that? Yeah, you see that? Cut this roughly into thirds, and I believe these should be just 150-ish grams each, if I recall. They should be similar. 154, 143, so that one's definitely light, so this one must be big. $155. 148, took a little too much off, that's right. All right, so these are close enough. So what we're gonna do now is, when I turned it out of the bowl, there was sort of the skin side, and now the skin side is down, the dried out side. So I'm gonna keep that down. I'm just gonna basically fold these up, package-like, turn it over so that it's skin side up now. Give it a real kind of traditional spin, and there's my ball. And the nose are gonna go for further proofing. That one, I think, loosened up a little bit. I should have pinched a lot of the other. So after you pull these together, you can pinch them up, get them to stick. And then after this part, they should look like nice little taut balls, and you can, if they need it, you can give them a pinch there, make sure they're sealed. All right, that's it. Covered in the freezer at least a day, and up to, realistically, it'll be better 2 days. It'll be pretty good 3 days. 4 days, it won't be quite as good, but it'll still be fine. 5, 6 days, it'll be usable, but it'll be noticeably harder to work with. 8, 9, 10 days, you have to kind of play it by ear. The structure might be completely gone. And if you use all-purpose flour, you'll get a couple fewer days than that, although you will definitely get 3 or 4 days at least. So, could use it later, better tomorrow, best the day after tomorrow. All right, so now we're on day 3. Day 1 was mixing, folding, and then just letting it sit overnight. Day 2 was portioning and then putting it into the fridge. Then now we're on day 3, and I'm gonna make a pizza real quick. So I've got my dough out. I'm gonna form it up real quick and then cook it in the pan and the oven. I've got my ingredients all kind of laid out over here. This is not how you do it. This is how I do it because I don't have a pizza oven. So the first part of the process will be the same. The second part won't be the same. Here is the dough. I pulled this out of the fridge 2.5 hours ago. Very soft, a little bit tacky, looks good. Here's a comparison, and this is one I pulled out of the fridge just a minute ago, and you can tell that it has risen a bit, but it's not a huge difference. But it'll still work great whether it's risen a little bit or a lot. I would normally give it at least an hour, normally more like 2. 4 is probably a little too much, although it would still end up working. I'm gonna flour the counter fairly heavily. I put a little bit of flour on the dough too, just to make it easy to turn out. I'm gonna turn it out gently so that I don't knock any of the air out of it that's in it. You've now worked so hard to put in. Can you see that? Barely, huh? A little bit. All right. And so staying away from the edges, I'll give it a little press. I like to give it a turn. I think real pizzaiolas don't. I'm not pushing on the edge, and I'm just spreading it out. But this dough is behaving very nicely. You can see this is a really very friendly dough. So I'm going to kind of gently pull it even on the counter. Hands just inside the outside edge. Very gently pinching. A little bit of a pull and form. I'm just going to make this up big enough for my pan. I don't think I ever mentioned the size of the recipe that I use is just right for me to make 3 pizzas that fit in this pan that I pretty much use every single time. You got to scale the recipe for whatever you want. These are pretty small, so you're either going to make 2 or you need to scale the recipe up or just make yourself a bunch of tiny pizzas. But I'm just going to stretch this guy out. I'm going to hold it up and let it droop under its own weight. Again, I am not smooshing the outside edge. I don't know if you can see it's window painting. It's really good looking dough. That is just about ready. It's springing back a little, which is kind of surprising, but it's also just sort of showing how strong this is and how much gluten it has. So now I'll pick it up, walk it over, cook it. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, came out of the cook, stovetop oven, whatever. Rested for a few minutes so the top kind of came together. This was a little bit too wet. The tomato sauce I used has a little bit too much water in it. You can see we got a lot of color. Let's see if I can get this up closer here. A little color. Decent puff, at least in some spots. I got some decent puff. Some of the other spots are a little low. I wouldn't mind having more puff, but that's perfectly acceptable. Decent cross section here. Huh? A mess. All right. It's sat, so it's not quite as crispy. Let's see. A little, yeah. See the little bit of open crumb, a little color on the bottom. So overall, really easy to make the dough. Really nice dough. Great recipe to start with. You can go for more hydration later if you want, or even some add-ins, like if you want to tweak it and add a whole wheat or put a little cheese in it or something like that. This would be a great place to start. The only thing is a couple of days worth of downtime, but I mean, honestly, what do we got, about a bit less than 10 minutes of total work involved, not counting getting shit out of the pantry and putting it back and doing dishes and all that. So easy to do, fast, except for the non-work time, and produces a really nice dough. It tastes great too, and it smells really nice, so you can really smell the fermentation in it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Give this one a try.